diagnostic company likes to claim that they allow clinicians to make better clinical decisions or like they generate more data and more insights. But what I learned over the years is that we want something that is commercially viable for us. What I see is that there are a lot of issues or problems, pain points in healthcare, and some solutions is really needed. So if there are challenges in Thai market, then why don't you also go to another country or market? So that's something that I think is very promising. So if you think about Thai market, it's good. It can be your launch pad, but eventually if you can also go to another market, then you can become a global player.
Good to see you, Khun Pat. The goal for today is actually for our audience who are mainly builders, right? Founders who are looking to build health tech startups here in Thailand, to live with a practical map of where to play, how things move, in how money moves, and what are the business model that gets traction and get funding in Thailand. So first, I think Khun Pat has extensive experience, not only in investing, but also to look at different startups around the world. So she can share a little bit more about that, what is the landscape in the US, UK, and how is it practical in Thailand, right? So first is, can you maybe introduce yourself and your firm?
I'm Pat. I'm from Disrupt Health Impact Fund. Very nice to meet you today. I've been in venture capital since 2018, so you can say that I'm in the space for 8 years now, time flies. Yeah, so previously we did a lot of early stage investments in Southeast Asia, and in 2024 we launched a new fund called Disrupt Health Impact Fund. So for the first time in forever, I get the chance to invest globally. So previously we only do Southeast Asian investment, and then with this new fund, I'm sourcing globally, so I'm seeing a lot of innovation from all around the world. And we're working with Samitivet Hospital and other investors in healthcare space in order to assess this technology and then invest in them. And then hopefully at the end, we want to encourage innovators to come to Thailand to help us improve the Thai health ecosystem. And I also feel like if we can attract this kind of talent, innovation, it can also inspire local innovators, and you can potentially collaborate too. So that's how we see the ecosystem. And just to tell you a little bit more about the fund, so this is the investment thesis. So every time when you talk to an investor, you should check their investment thesis. You need to ask what they are investing in, because otherwise you might be speaking to an investor that cannot invest in your business, and it will be a waste of time for everyone, right? And just wanted to bring this up, but some investors just want to explore and want to hear new things, but they cannot invest. So it's not secret, but just wanted to put that out so that you don't feel disappointed. Yeah, so it's very important to really understand what the investor is looking for.
And also, I think, understand a little bit of their fund life, where they are at their investment period,
every
right?
time a founder asks me that, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm gonna tell you the truth. Yeah, but sometimes if you don't ask, and then you might be assuming things, and it will be a waste of time for you as well. Yeah. Yes, because for me, I really value founders' time. Because I know that you have to be spending time building things that truly matter, but if I cannot invest, then I don't want to waste your time as well.
So what are the themes of your fund? If I'm a founder, I come in and say, hey, okay, so I'm building health tech companies, but what are the key themes that you invest in?
Yeah, so we invest globally. I already mentioned that. We usually come in around Series A, but we also make exceptions a little bit. So if it's a pre-Series A round, seed extension round, or whatever you want to call it, seed plus seed, whatever, seed 3, seed 4, that also works for us. Basically, we want innovation that already have some kind of clinical evidence that we can evaluate, because in healthcare, there are so many claims, and if we don't see the data, we cannot really tell if it actually works. And it's also the important piece of information where we use to communicate with doctors who may or may not want to adopt it.
And clinical claim, I think, come in different shades, right? What kind of clinical claim matters to you? Must it be from a most reputable hospital in the world? It must from Thailand? It must be double blind? Or what kind of clinical claims do you look at, and how do you check it?
Depends on the value proposition. So if the claim is that this is the most accurate, or it's as accurate as existing solution, but it's cheaper, and then I will need to see if it's actually accurate and what kind of population did they conduct the study on. That's one. And then Another thing would be like, for example, they say that if you use this and it can treat this condition, then I really need to see how it works. Yeah, otherwise it's hard to explain to doctors, and doctors don't like things that are not explainable.
And how do you check that actually? Do you go to the hospital and check or do you read the papers? Must only be Nature, then it matters, or if it's not on Nature publication, I don't care, for example.
Oh, our portfolio just got published in Nature, by the way. So I just wanted to say that too. Yeah, so I guess there are tiers of publications, right? As long as it's in a okay one, good one, relevant, acceptable. Because a lot of time in healthcare, adoption happens through clinicians driving adoption. So, for example, there's a KOL doing studies with them, then it would make that paper more credible than others, right? Because a lot of time, as clinician data, you still question a lot. You're a scientist, you're trained to question. And then if it's done by a clinician who is reputable, then it can help drive adoption. That's the way we look at things. So most of the time we would prefer if they already have some clinical evidence, they already have traction, it's great. But in healthcare, we also understand that it takes time. So if you don't have money, show me the data.
Is there a point where you feel like the data is enough? Or it's a chicken and egg game, right? You need money to get the data and you need data to get your money, right? Like what's that balance? How can founder find that balance, right? I know it's hard, but...
It is really hard because we do early stage investments, but for doctors, if they are going to use something, they want to see a lot of data. Yeah. So it's a very difficult balance to make, but then for us, we want to come in between and we say that, oh, at least the early data looks really promising, and then we think that if we fund this route, they can do bigger study, for example. I guess like for doctors, I think we also need to segment them into groups. So there are doctors who like, oh, I'm only going to use this if it's in the guideline. So this is the kind of person who will use this maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, not today. And then there are doctors who are early adopters. They have this pain point, they see the value of this technology and they're willing to try it out. They would try to understand what are the limitations and what are the risks. And if it's safe to use, then they might start using it in a small group and see how it works, and then they might consider collaborate.
I'm actually quite curious because in Thailand it's actually quite hard to raise funds to clinical study, right? And a lot of times you have to go to government. Do you see that a lot in overseas cases as well?
Yeah, I guess in other countries, especially European countries, I feel like it's so easy to get grants. Everyone has grants. I don't know why everyone has grants. Either grant from government, grant from university, or grant for some programs. Yeah, everyone has grants. And then looking at Thailand, it's so difficult to get grants. Or if you get grant maybe in a few million baht, it's already considered a lot. It's not enough in most of the cases.
What are your theme of your investment? What do you believe that the startup that will change the world?
Yeah, so these are the dreams that we came up with Samitivet Hospital. Yeah, Samitivet.
So they are your anchor.
Yeah. Our anchor LP, they want to think that the management is very progressive and they set up a team to disrupt the hospital. So it's very, I don't know, it's just like when the first time I heard about it, I'm like, really? Yeah. So the way they look at it is that if you focus on preventive care, meaning that patient will come to hospital less, it's kind of like a new way of thinking, and they feel like some of the doctors might not like these changes, so they scout the doctors within the hospital who see this and agree with this and set up an innovation team who are going to push all these initiatives. So self-care, so allowing people to take care of themselves from anywhere, not at the hospital only, but from anywhere in the world, from your house, from in your daily life whatsoever. So that's the first one. Second one is preventive care. How can we detect risk early and do early intervention in order to prevent people from getting sick? So as you can see, these themes are like contradicting with current hospital business model quite a lot. So if you run a hospital, you build hospital, you want people to come to hospital, you want to occupy all the beds, right? But then this is the future. So yeah, I feel like we are moving towards that, but then yeah, there'll be some challenges, but eventually it's gonna be this. And then age, well, of course, because we are moving towards aging society, there are so many gaps to be filled. And wellness, because Thailand is very famous for wellness, but we feel like not only physical health, but it's also important to look into lifestyle and also nutrition, because I also believe in the concept of food as medicine. Yeah. And then last one is because we work at hospital, we still want to do AI-enabled smart hospital. Yeah. But implementing AI at hospital is very complex. So that's another topic anyways.
Can you explain a little bit on how the business model works? Because I think in healthcare, the payers, then users, and patients may not be the same. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So I prepared some slides for that because I want everyone to get something that is useful for you to think about. If I have to summarize what I've learned throughout these 2 years of evaluating medtech companies, so first let's start the general criteria of what VC looks for. So for us VC, we want something that is commercially viable, of course. What I see is that there are a lot of issues or problems, pain points in healthcare, and some solutions is really needed, but then nobody wants to pay for it. That's the problem. So as an investor, we have the obligation to return our money to our LP or investor. So we have to invest in something that's commercially viable. So we want to make sure that it's a kind of pain point that has willingness to pay. And then second one, it has to be scalable, repeatable across markets. It's the same as any other kinds of startup. And also revenue part is also quite important. So we would look at not only the amount of revenue, but quality of revenue, contract length, for example, and also stickiness is also very important. And then of course, unit economics. Everyone likes profit, right? In short term, it's okay if you're burning cash, but then eventually we need to see that as you scale, you can actually generate profits, because that's exactly what the acquirers want as well. So we need to take into account what every party wants and use that as our criteria. And then this is a bonus. In other markets, for example, in the US or Europe, they have a healthcare system that pays for these kind of things, right? So if they can reimburse, then they can get government money or insurers money, then it's another business model. So that's also a bonus for us. So ultimately, I just wanted to say that VCs want to make 10x, but a lot of times, because for us too, we also have to raise funds from LP, and LP wants their money back plus profit plus not too long, please. Then for us, it's not that we want to make quick money or anything, but if we don't deliver, then LP don't want to invest, then we cannot raise another fund, and we don't have any more funds to fund these companies anymore. So that's why we still have to do these things. So what I wanted to bring up is that because of the funding winter, the sentiment has gone down quite a lot, and then there are some investors that say that they don't want to invest in startup anymore. But to me, I feel like there are still a lot of good opportunities out there, and I really believe in these people who want to create impact, want to develop innovation that actually improve the quality of care. And yeah, I really believe in that, so I believe that there's still good opportunities out there. But it's also my job to prove that they can actually be successful, they can actually make money, they can actually create impact, and they can eventually exit the company. And then at that point, I feel like if I could do all these things, and then more investors would be more confident and they will come in, and there will be more capital in the market. So it's also our duty to do that. Yeah, I prepared 2 slides. So first one is about medical device. Just to summarize how we look at the business model for medical device. So first question would be around who is going to pay for this. Is it a self-pay model, out of pocket, or is it going to be paid B2B through the hospitals? Or do you have a reimbursement pathway for this so that you can unlock the government and insurers money? And then the second one, once we know who are going to pay for this, and then it's very important for us to really understand why would they pay for this. Yeah, so it's not only like a lot of times startup would say, oh, my solution saves costs, but then hospital feel like, yeah, maybe, yeah. So you might actually save costs, but then in their context, there are so other factors, and then they also need to think about if they were to implement this, and some of their healthcare staff have to learn how to use this, and that's also cost. right? And then tech, IT implementation, process change, workflow integration, those kind of things are also cost. So yeah, that's why I say perceived benefit and effort that they have to put in. So it's not the benefit that you offer, but it's the benefit that they perceive when they hear about your company. So those are very two different things, because sometimes you say benefit A, B, C, D, but they only might believe in A, but not the rest. Yeah, so that's the trap that you really need to be careful. For self-pay, I can say that maybe it's people pay because they want better care quality, or maybe they have a burning pain point, they see this, they want this, or it's just convenience. Yeah.
I think to make it a little bit more context, right? Could you give an example of company you invest in, if possible, in Southeast Asia? Thailand, I know you have not invested in any in Thailand, but like how do they go through, like medical devices that go through this?
So with this fund, we invested in other markets.
Yep.
We also looked at Thailand, companies in Thailand as well, Southeast Asia as well. Actually, let me talk about the company that we actually invested in, so that I can share more insights.
Sure.
Yeah, so for example, recently we just invested in a medical device company in the US. They are selling, it's a vibration belt for women with osteopenia. So basically it's low bone density. So when women have postmenopausal women, they lost the bone a lot, it declines a lot, and then at one point it's diagnosed with osteoporosis, or maybe they just fall and then they will get hip fracture, and 50% of people with hip fracture cannot walk. So it's a really traumatic experience, and then it affects someone's health span quite a lot. This technology, it's a wearable device, so you put it on your body and it's gonna simulate your bone, and it can reduce the bone loss. Yeah, so this is an example. So in bone loss market, there are not much solution. So if you have low bone density, what you can do is first you can exercise, but you have to do weight bearing exercise. Second, you can take vitamin D or calcium, but there's no enough. I don't think there's enough evidence to suggest that if you take vitamin D, then you will not have this problem. Yeah. So there's no other solution. So with this kind of device, we feel like it's a burning problem that people are scared. I think for this,
like going back to the first segment, is how much clinical evidence do they have before they come to you?
Yes, they already published data. They already got FDA clearance, and this solution require prescription. So it's not a wellness device.
I see.
But checks otherwise.
So it goes into
self-pay.
Self-pay? Okay.
Yeah. So for this one, for example, I bring it up because the pain point is burning enough, it's hard enough, no good alternative solutions. And then once they launched, they didn't get $2 million in sales.
How do they sell then?
So they get free media, and then people heard about it, and then people want to buy it. So people come to the
Do doctors help subscribe, help them do the marketing, kind of word of mouth?
They have KOLs, they have doctors who advocate women's health, and they have doctors who talk about menopause, for example, and then they also have rehab clinics, thought leaders in many different institutions talking about this.
I see.
So I think what we like about the company is that we don't want something that's too wellness, but we want something that has medical value. Seeing doctors talking about this, really there are doctors that still don't want to use this because it's still early, but then there are some also doctors that say, but I don't want to say to my patient that there's no solution for you other than vitamin D and calcium.
Yeah. So I guess this is a case where KOL is marketing. So it's a case of the clinical data is very clear that it helps, right? And then the early doctors bought in, and they kind of
spread the word.
Spread the words to their patients, and that's how they get their revenue.
Yeah, so with this one, it's proven that, they sell this device, and then people actually pay for this out of pocket. And in the future, they also want to do reimbursement. So we feel like, with only self-pay, it's already quite big. And now we give them money to do more sales and marketing. They're gonna hire their first sales rep. And then, if they can do reimbursement, then they have two business model, for example. That's how we see it from the commercial pick.
I guess which round do you guys invested?
It's Series A plus.
Plus.
Series A3.
What's the total round size?
it's still, they're still closing it, so I don't
I
have
see.
a final number.
I see.
But these days you see a lot of seed 1, seed 2, seed 3, series A, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then B, B1, B plus, B prefer, whatever. It's hard to
Just
say what
come
is
up
what
with your
round
own.
anymore.
Just come up with
It
your
just
own number.
describes the
Yeah.
market, yeah.
Okay. Second, perhaps diagnostic. Yeah.
Okay, for diagnostics, also we also look at it in this way. So also who pay, who wants to pay, how do they pay? But then what's different about diagnostics is that you might be selling to labs and then lab distributes to hospital, right? So it really depends. And then with diagnostic, if it's self-pay, it's usually at home testing, test kit, or like some panel that people want to pay because they want to know or whatever. But then usually if they are developing diagnostic solutions, then usually what hospital or labs want to know is, does it provide better clinical decision? Is it faster or is it more accurate, or you can do earlier detection? If we talk about cancer screening, and you see a lot of stage 2 cancer detection companies, and then cost reduction, revenue generation, of course. But then what I really want to highlight is that a lot of time diagnostic company likes to claim that they allow clinicians to make better clinical decisions, or like they generate more data and more insights. But what I learned over the years is that more data doesn't mean better decision. Some data is more confusing. Yeah. So a lot of, imagine if you go for cancer screening and you don't have cancer, but they say you have cancer risk. How do you feel about that? But I can't do anything because you don't have cancer yet. Yeah, that's something that you really need to be careful of in diagnostics, because you want to give people enough information to take care of themselves, but if you give too much information, then they're worried. They worry about it, and then they can't do anything about it, and that sucks. Yeah, so that's something that I really need to highlight in diagnostic category. And with diagnostics, if you want reimbursement, they usually need a lot of evidence. Not only the clinical evidence, but if you want to unlock reimbursement, you should show economic evidence as well, that using this test or screen, if it's cheaper, it's easy to show. But sometimes if you do, for example, early detection, you should be able to show that, oh, if you detect this earlier, then people don't have to be admitted into hospital, and then, oh, it will be cost saving, but you can see that it's a long-term gain, right? So that's why it will take some time for early detection companies to generate enough evidence in order to get reimbursement.
Yes. So it sounds like diagnostic is a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
So what kind of companies that you have invested in diagnostic that you can share, and perhaps why do you invest in them?
Yeah, so we invested in a company called PocDoc last year. It's a UK company. They do health screening for cardiovascular. They do lipid tests. So basically, if you use that test, you can see your cholesterol level, HDL, LDL, triglyceride, and then they also use that AI to generate risk score for you. Does this person have cardiovascular risk? And how they go to market is very interesting. So they work with NHS, National Health Service in the UK, because in the UK it's actually free to get health checkup, but only 40% of people go to hospital because people don't want to go to hospital in the UK. It's a nightmare. So they don't go get tests, and then people get heart attack, and then it's bad for the system, right? So the UK government, they want to push screening. They want to do NCD detection. So instead of asking people to come to hospital, they send this kit to people's house. So you just prick your finger, and then you wait 10 minutes, and you scan with your phone, and then you get your result in 10 minutes.
Wow.
And then the result would be sent to your GP. And then instead of like doctors having to meet many people, they can just monitor in the dashboard that, oh, today we screen 100 people in this community, and out of 100 people who have high risk score, you only need to call in those people. So they can do preventive care at scale.
I think common thread that for the companies, how do they convince you for your investment?
For this one?
For general thread, what is there a pattern that you see that you really this kind of company?
Good clinical data, because that's something that really, because we need to present to our investment committee, and we have doctors on our committee, and a lot of times they say, okay, I understand this, but send me the paper, I'll read and feedback later.
They actually read the paper?
Yes.
Okay.
And sometimes they also ask other specialists to review the paper and give them feedback. So it's important. clinical evidence, also adoption pathway. So we also like to see who are they collaborating with, who did they do the pilot with, or do they have any strong member in the scientific advisory board who can not only advise them on this one topic, but someone who's influential and can drive adoption, someone who says something about this and other doctors want to listen to. Yeah, so sometimes we see companies working with, for example, heart association, things like that. And then good traction, of course, if they have it, but if not, then it will go back to the technology.
Have you invested in company without traction?
Yes, it's a deep tech company.
I see.
Yeah.
And so why do you decide to do that?
Because they are operating in a very interesting space. So for us, if it's pre-revenue, then the tech must be really interesting, very hard to replicate. And then this one, they develop a glucose measurement device. And for us, there's no question around glucose measurement. I think everyone needs, not everyone, but then people with diabetes, people who have high sugar level to monitor their sugar level. So in terms of commercialization, we don't see much of commercialization risk, but the risk would be around the technology, but then they have good studies data. They just got published in Nature, for example, and then they collaborate with President of Diabetes Association. So it's, for example, in glucose, it's a lot of companies make really bold claims, but they're operating in wellness. So it's not acceptable for medical doctors. We want something that is clinical grade. And sometimes some companies have both models. So while they're waiting for FDA, they're gonna launch a wellness version first. And then once they got clearance, then they can do medical device. So that's another thing that we've been seeing too.
I see. Okay, so now that you have seen a lot of companies overseas, right? Do you think founders in Thailand can do diagnostic and medical device, and what are your advice on that, and what are the space that would be interesting?
Yeah, so we think that in Thailand, even though we haven't made any investment in Thai company yet, but we've been looking around quite a lot, and then a lot of times we try to support the university or other incubations in order to push the innovation to come out. And what I see is that I believe that Thai scientists are very smart, and a lot of them are actually as capable as scientists in any other country. But what I need to say is that in other countries, I feel like the ecosystem or the amount of support that they get, they're more resourceful, so to say. But for example, you're the same person doing this kind of thing at this level of expertise, but then if you're in Europe, you can get millions of grants a lot easier than if you're a scientist in Thailand. So I'm not going to blame the system, but I'm just saying that the ecosystem there is more mature. It's easier for innovators to get support, and there are also successful entrepreneurs scientists who have done that before and can come back and tell other people how to do this. And they could also be investing in the company as angel as well, and then help you figure things out. But in Thailand, I think we can be successful too, but we have to do a lot more work than them. Yeah, but I believe that there are people who are willing to do that. Like you mentioned earlier, Lab has come quite far. Basically, has exported their devices to the UK. In Thailand, I think there's potential to answer your question, but then there's not enough resources for them to succeed in a short amount of time. They might need to be figuring things out quite a lot on their own, and then they learn from their mistakes, and then they do something about it. So it might take longer than other countries.
Yep, I think especially for these two, we would be happy to bring them on stage, right, to share about grant. It's actually also on the contrary, when we talk to T-cells and other people, they're like, we don't find enough company to give grant to. So I think that there's a little bit of a grant, but just need to understand the country strategy, where do they want to invest in, of course, politics, right, and just like anything in Thailand. So I think those are the kind of things we could talk about. So that's one. And I think apart from being a scientist, like understanding entrepreneurial journey is also another one. And I hope through this community and sharing, we could help that, right? Is there any last word before we open up for Q&A? Any advice or aspiring entrepreneurs? I think you don't sound very optimistic about Thailand, but I guess, yeah, any advice for aspiring entrepreneurs?
I just want to say that what I've been seeing in this past few years is that a lot of Southeast Asian founders are actually launching their product in Western market, and that's something that I'm super excited about. So if there are challenges in Thai market, then why don't you also go to another country or market? So that's something that I think is very promising. So if you think about Thai market, it's good. It can be your launch pad, but eventually if you can also go to another market, then you can become a global player, and then your solution means something, right? And then if you can penetrate other market, and then you can grow your business, you can raise money, then you can overcome local challenges. So I think it's also good to have that kind of vision and diversify and figure out, because we also meet founders from all around the world, like everyone from Singapore never think about Singapore. They think globally since day one. So that's the mentality that I want to see, and then very excited to support those who are brave enough to venture into the global market and show that Thai people can do this too.
Yeah, and I think to be VC fundable, especially in medical device, you have to think about US, UK, Japan, and Europe. Yeah, so those are the countries that you have to think about, right? Okay, let's open up the floor, the Q&A. Yeah, go ahead.
To ask about the Summit Billet case, right? What they are doing to disrupt that? Are they implementing new tools, or they're building their own innovation? How does it work, as a good example?
Yeah. I'll repeat the question before. So what are they doing to disrupt their own business model, right?
So they set up an innovation team, and then they launch their own app, and then they try to find innovations to be integrated into the ecosystems. I think it will take time, but I think it's good that they take the first step to do it. So for example, earlier last year, they launched a wearable clinic, for example. That's completely new, right? So everyone wears a wearable, but do you really understand your wearable data? But if the doctor can use the wearable data to make healthcare more holistic, for example. So these are the things that they've been doing. They also do sports medicine as well. So people like to run, right? These days you see a lot of runners. So it's a Thai doctor who graduated from Harvard Medicine, for example, who launched new program to help people understand how they can optimize their run performance using their wearable data. So things like that. So these are the new things. And then also at home monitoring, for example, they work with a startup in Israel to launch at-home monitoring device. So the problem with telemedicine is that so you can meet your doctor, right? But sometimes you can't really explain what's happening in your ear or your throat. But with this device, you can put it in your mouth, and then it shows the doctor who's doing virtual hospital with you, and then they can see your throat or your ear or whatever, your eyes. So I think that's something that kind of like fill in the gap of telemedicine. For example, so these are the things that they've been doing, and then they want to do more. They want to implement AI to assess someone's risk. So today, if you go to their app, you can input some information, and then they will calculate your risk, things like that. But it will take time, but I think it's good that they take the first step and do it.
So I just wanted to add up, if I can, right? And also Billet mentioned about empowering entrepreneurship. So the products that they're building, are the entrepreneurs are doctors, or they're working with external entrepreneurs and help them to build solutions within their ecosystem?
Both. So they hire computer engineers to do digital health, and then some of the doctors and nurses who have some kind of pain point or passion projects, they can spend their time to develop these projects in the program, and then they also work with external vendor to co-develop solutions or do pilots as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but they can also come from the other way, right? Like the engineers, usually engineering professors in Thailand, right? Usually engineering professors who meet doctors, find a pain point and say, hey, that's interesting pain point. Let me create a solution to solve that. And that's also another way. And both of them can be entrepreneurs, but at the same time, they need entrepreneurial training. Business skill is different than treating patients, right? So I think that's in also hacking medicine, we emphasize a lot on diversity. And diversity means three things, right? Like one, doctors, healthcare professionals, two is engineers, and three, entrepreneurs or the business people. So these are the three mix that you usually need to create a successful health tech startup. Yeah.
Just thought about this. Just wanted to mention that the doctor that sits on our IC, she used to be a founder of telemedicine startup that got acquired, and then she became a doc. So she still practiced, but then her main role is to drive innovation. So these are the kind of doctors that we work with. Another doctor, he's the one who implemented the smart ambulance system. And then Smithy also have telemedicine very long time, way before COVID. Yeah, so these are the things that they've been doing, and it's just nobody talked much about telemedicine back then. But then when COVID happened, they were like, "Oh, we already have this. Cool." Yeah, so that's the mentality of the team.
Okay.
So aside from the funding issue within the Thai innovation ecosystem, what are some other ways that sort of Thai startups might not even be born at first or might trip and fall along the way?
That's a very good question because having money doesn't mean anything. A lot of companies get grants but never launch their product. That happens quite a lot too. So that's a very good point. Yeah, I like to see money as a resource, but then money is not everything for sure. So I would say that it's also about commercialization skills or the commercialization pathway that is not as established as in other markets. So you have to figure things out quite a lot on your own, and then imagine asking a scientist to become CEO. How difficult is that? So they are very good at what they're doing, but then if you're asking them to manage the company, raise funding, hire people, manage the team, sell, but do not overclaim, but then generate money. And then I feel it's quite hard for one person to do all that. And then I think the best combination that I've seen so far is that scientists do what they do best, and then they probably hold chief medical officer role or chief scientific officer role, and then match them up with another CEO who has startup experience, and then they work together. I think this is the best combination by far. Yeah.
So I want to ask, Thailand's heavily dominated by the corporate venture capitalism, and I want to ask, how do you feel about that in terms of healthcare and its effect on Thailand and its ability to get startups off the ground?
Yeah, I think the challenge of corporate venture capital is that it's heavily driven by corporate strategy, and strategy also depends on how the company performs that year. Sometimes there's an economic downturn, right? You don't make much profit, the stocks go down. Oh no, we have to do something about it. Can we wait 7 years for this innovation to grow? So sometimes it's hard to look at the long term if short term is not going well. Yeah, that's the issue with the structure of corporate venture capital, but it really depends because some funds actually have, it also depends on the management commitment as well. So with corporate venture capital, I see that in other countries, sometimes they just allocate this amount of budget for the team to invest in something that is disruptive, for example, and they don't have any kind of financial pressure, put any pressure on this team in order for them to focus on finding something that's really innovative and they can wait. So that's one group. But then some other groups, they still want to see short-term results. So I think it really depends on the management, how they structure the CVC arm. This is very interesting because, for example, Samsung, they have 4 teams doing investments, and each team is doing things differently. So for example, if it's one unit might be looking at things that can be integrated in short term, another unit is looking at moonshot projects. So that's the thing that we've been seeing as well. I guess the challenge in Thailand is that it's hard because for this kind of innovation to grow, you need to be patient, but it's hard to ask corporates to be patient if the situation is not going so well. And that's why they are quite risk averse. But in order to support innovation, you need to take risks, right? So it's controversial. I feel like in Thailand, it's not easy to find funding, but if you have to work hard a lot, and if you have good results, then eventually someone's gonna see it, and there are exceptions so many times that they make exceptions. So that's what's happening right now in the market.
And I think from before CVC, you should go to angels. There are quite a few angels in Thailand, like people here. And so I think Thailand right now is at the stage where there's a few exited founders. One went to politics, right? Some of them. But there are actually quite a lot of founders who exited. So I think those are the people who you can approach. But at the same time, with those founders who are angels from, for example, e-commerce business, who may not understand medical, healthcare, health tech, They will know how to execute on the entrepreneurial journey, but at the same time, you need to help them understand the healthcare part. Maybe get a really good scientific board, maybe get some early investors. One trick that I've heard people use a lot is to get a KOL to invest a little bit in your company. Just tell the investor that they are on your cap table. It could be $2,000, no one need to know, right? Just say 50,000 baht, 60,000 baht, no one need to care, right? But you say, hey, you got the head of pediatrics in Sirat Hospital to be your investor. Then the angels will start listening. Okay, now can you tell me more a little bit about what you do? So those are some of the tricks that you can think about. And obviously, if CVC doesn't work, fly to Singapore. So Singapore is really probably the biggest market in Southeast Asia.
So if you think about it, there are some advantages to CVCs. Usually they're evergreen funds. So actually it's going to lead to my question for Khun Pat. But so they can deploy at any time. So they do have somewhat, in some ways, depending upon the fund, they'll have more flexibility to actually deploy. The challenge is oftentimes the management team will change. And suddenly they'll completely change direction. She knows exactly who we're talking about. And suddenly the whole thesis will change. But in general, a lot of times these are what we call evergreen funds, which means they don't have a mandate, which means a 10-year life cycle of their fund where they have to deploy by this time. And they have to get rid of their money and then they have to harvest and stuff like that. They can go for a long time, but you just need to make sure that you're aligned with the CVC and the top management's vision of that fund. But this is going to bring me back to Khun Pat. So Khun Pat, where are you today in your life cycle? Maybe give this team, I gave a brief one in the last time I spoke on the fund's life cycle, why it matters, when you approach, you guys are year 2, going into year 3, right?
Yes.
And size of your fund, AUM, what's current life cycle, when you guys need to harvest, all that stuff. And then the second part of the question is, you gave us the things that you guys have in your mandate and your thesis.
Yeah.
What don't you invest into in HealthTech? What are the
Don't
things
invest.
do you guys go into class 2, class 3 devices? What do you guys go, no, that's beyond our comfort level? Capital.
Yeah, see, when you talk to experienced entrepreneur, it's like this. So, yeah, thank you for the questions. The first question is about
Fund life cycle.
Fund life cycle.
Youถึงไหนแล้ว?
Yeah, sure. Before that, just wanted to add one thing. So in 2024, 2025, meaning we have time, right? We can wait until do this and approach the end of our investment period. So my criteria this year and my criteria next, not too long exit, then the timeline is like shorter and shorter, meaning that if I invest this year, I can wait maybe 6 years. If I invest next year, I can wait only 5 years. If I invest the year after, then I can wait only 4 years, meaning that the deal flow in the VC is approaching the end of the investment period. They can only invest if they think you can make an exit within the next 3-4 years. So that's a very important
So
point.
it's a 10-year fund.
Yes.
That means if I put in my money, that means in year 10, I expect to get my money back with my returns. And you guys have a 4-year deployment.
5 actually,
5?
but we try to finish in 4.
In 4, okay. So
Yes.
that means year 1 to 5. So that means if you're going to talk to her, you need to talk to her within the next 3 years. Otherwise, she's not going to give you any money. She's out. Then she also has, and how do you guys have it split between first deployment to follow-ons? What's your split?
Right now it's 60-40.
Okay, so that means 60% will deploy to new. 40% will mean, I like your company and I see your traction and maybe 3 years down the road you need more cash. Here's more cash, I'm going to follow on an investment. And then the goal is to actually harvest, meaning I get my money back in year 10, ideally. But truthfully right now, the average around the world, it was 10 plus 1, which is 12 years for us LPs. Right now, the average is 15 years. So it's 12 plus 1 plus another 3.
But LPs don't like that. If I keep
No,
doing
I don't
that,
like that.
Yeah, if I keep doing that, I don't have a career. I cannot raise a new fund because I haven't returned the previous money yet.
Yeah.
So see, so that's how it works.
Yeah, so not only do you need to look at their themes, you also need to understand where in the fund life cycle are they. And a lot of times, so then that means usually, not necessarily disrupt, but usually by year 3 or 4, they're now thinking about the next fund. So they're now raising for the next fund, so fund 2. And then they'll do that for 4 years, and then year 8, they're now raising fund 3. Year 6 to year 9 is when they start making enough money to exist, right? That's when they're like, okay, you die. Help you guys understand when you're approaching them, what's their thinking, and also understanding where they're at. It really does matter.
Yeah, go ahead.
If you don't mind, PTY, I know you've been in the games for so long, right? And you know some of the CVC tell the world they invest in things, but never invest in anything. I guess my question, and probably to Khun Pat and Khun TY as well, if you're early stage Thai founders, given I know there's a lot going on, there's a lot of smart scientists, but not very good track record, not very much exit of late. Do you think Thai founders have better chance going abroad from day one? I.e., we just went to Singapore last month. We met like a couple of VCs even before we launched our product.
Yeah.
Would that be the approach that you're suggesting folks do, or things that you would suggest at this stage? Please?
Right now, yes. So Thai economy is so soft that people are very scared to deploy. People are scared to spend, corporates are scared to spend, and that's not just in investments. This is across the ecosystem, and with our political instability also made it even more conservative. So at the moment, yes. And actually, if you look globally, since COVID, Southeast Asia is the last to recover. That includes Latin America, Europe, North America, Australia. Doesn't matter where you go. We're back at 2016 funding levels. So in Southeast Asia, and largely driven because of Indonesia, and Indonesia was overheated and way too expensive, and so a lot of people lost a lot of money, and they're still about to lose more. So Singapore is a great place to go, and then you should also broaden your horizons. Japan's a good place to go. Korea's a good place to go right now, but Southeast Asia, very tough, and particularly Thailand. That's the truth. You can ask her. It's not easy here now.
Yeah, so if you have the resources to go, it's good to go. As an investor, I like that anyway. Even I also talked to some other VCs, and then a lot of them have changed their thesis. Some are now moving to the US, and then yeah, it's sad but true. Whatever opportunities you have access to, I think it's good to take it, because you never know what's gonna happen anymore. And in Thailand, I really think it's hard to attract funding unless you can do it at if you're very lean, and if that works and you go to another market and you can scale that, it's good, right? Yeah, just to sum up this. So if you think you can go, you have the resources, people, you can break into the market, then why not?
Yeah, some people have split teams, right? So put some of your smaller team in Singapore is very expensive. Hiring is at least 100,000. It's like entry level 100,000 is like minimum. Like for undergrad, 100K is minimum. 100K in Thailand, you get a solid people, right? So a lot of teams register in Singapore to be a Singapore company, but they don't have people stationed there. And do clinical trials in Singapore is also good. And US has some accelerator and programs that you can apply. They do both US and Singapore clinical trials. They have tie-up with the Arkansas group, so you can do that as well. Do that validation, and then you can spin what from there.
What are areas that you don't touch?
Okay, we don't touch class 3 device because it's gonna take long to prove the safety. So I think it's hard to commercialize within 7 years, for example. And then because we don't have pharmaceutical LP, we cannot validate that. We will only play to our strengths. Yeah, so that's one. And then second one is, actually when we first launched the fund, we were very bullish about digital health. But when we look at digital health companies, so many of them are developing the same thing, and for us, it's not that it's not good, but then we cannot tell which one is the best because they are claiming, for example, like AI for a cancer detection, AI for lung screening, you can say that. There are hundreds of lung X-ray company, AI that does imaging, right? And then for us, we don't have any problem with that, but if there are hundreds of companies and we cannot really tell which one's gonna be the winner, that's why we haven't invested in any of them yet. But with medical devices, then we can say this is the only device that can do this. That's why we want to invest in this. But digital health, there are so many digital health unicorns, don't get me wrong, but I don't understand yet what makes a unicorn. So that's why I don't invest.
Any last questions?
I have a piece of advice.
Okay, go ahead.
So those of you who are trying to do FDA, have to go through FDA approvals, I highly recommend going off to Singapore, especially if you're in medical devices. In Thailand, our FDA board, we don't even have a proper board that does reviews. To give you an example, I'm invested into Incredible Juice. It's a diet, low sugar juice. Took us 2 years to get FDA approval here. We went to Singapore, 10 days. So there's some other advantages by getting established in Singapore as well. So for those of you who need to go
And if you have Singapore approval, it's a lot easier to get approval here because they like some evidence from abroad.
All right, thank you very much. So thank you very much, Khun Pat, for the session.